Welcome. We're all about that intellectual rush you get from, well, getting straight to the heart of things, focusing on those tiny details others miss.
Exactly. And today we're plunging into some classic cases. Stories of human malice where, really, only pure logic could cut through the noise.
We're not just retelling stories, we're looking at how they were solved.
Right. It's about the method. The silent clues, maybe a tiny footprint, a unique physical trait, or even the tracks of a strange animal.
Things that just shatter the criminal's story.
Precisely. We want you to feel that aha moment, that click of understanding.
We got three really compelling mysteries lined up. Let's start on Dartmoor, a place gripped by national anxiety.
Okay, so the scene is vital here. England is buzzing about the Wessex Cup, the biggest race of the year.
And Silver Blaze is the horse everyone expects to win, right? The clear favorite.
Absolutely. Then overnight, disaster strikes. The horse vanishes. And his trainer, John Straker, a very well-respected figure, is found dead out on the moor.
This Straker, he ran King's Pyland Stables for Colonel Ross. Small operation, just 4 horses, but top-notch.
Very professional. Guarded nightly by 3 stable lads. Straker lived close by with his wife. It was, a tight setup.
Which makes the first criminal act seem really targeted. Someone knew the routine.
That's the first hook, the drugging attempt. Hunter, one of the stable boys on duty, is knocked out cold.
How?
Powdered opium slipped into his supper, curried mutton specifically.
Okay.
But here's the kicker, the detail that often gets glossed over. The Strakers, in their house just a couple hundred yards away, ate the exact same curry.
And they were fine.
Perfectly fine.
Ah, so it wasn't the whole batch, it was just Hunter's plate.
Exactly. Surgical, like you said. Intended only to take out the guard. The perpetrator knew who ate what and when.
That sets a pretty tense stage for the rest of the night.
It does. So around 1 a.m., Mrs. Straker wakes up, finds her husband getting dressed.
Middle of the night, why?
He's anxious, says it's the bad weather, the rain, plus that earlier drugging attempt. He wants to check on the horses.
Understandable, I suppose.
She pleads with him to stay inside, but he insists, pulls on his big Macintosh coat, and heads out towards the stables.
And that's the last time she sees him alive.
That's right. By 7 the next morning, it's chaos. The stable door is found open, Silver Blaze's stall empty, and poor Hunter is still completely out of it, just dead to the world.
And then they find Straker.
Later that day, yeah. His body is discovered in a dip, a sort of hollow, out on the moor, skull crushed. A really brutal injury.
But there was something else, wasn't there? Another wound.
Yes, a small, very precise incision on his thigh, almost like a surgical cut.
Weird. And the clue. The big one.
In his hand, clutched tight, a cravat, a silk necktie, and it belongs to a man named Fitzroy Simpson.
Okay, Fitzroy Simpson.
Yeah.
Sounds like our prime suspect just walked onto the stage.
Well, for the police, it certainly seemed that way. Case closed almost instantly.
Who was this Simpson guy?
He was already on their radar. Bit of an outsider, a Londoner, known to be hanging around, asking questions, trying to get betting tips, basically, about Silver Blaze, but also about the second favorite, Desborough, stabled over at Mapleton.
And Hunter, the drugged stable boy, he'd seen him.
He had. Hunter identified Simpson as the suspicious man who'd been snooping around earlier.
So the police theory must have practically written itself.
Absolutely. It goes like this. Simpson drugs the lad. He must have had a duplicate key to the stable.
Why must he have had a key?
Because the horse's bridle was missing from the stall. The assumption was Simpson put a bridle on the horse to lead him away.
Right, okay. So key, bridle, leads the horse out to kidnap him before the big race.
Exactly. Then Straker intercepts him out on the moor. There's a struggle. Simpson uses this heavy, lead-weighted walking stick he was known to carry and was actually found with when arrested.
The murder weapon?
The presumed murder weapon, yes. Crushes Straker's skull with it. Then maybe the horse bolted, or Simpson hid it somewhere. Simpson himself admitted being out on the moor in the storm, but swore he had nothing to do with the murder or the horse.
It sounds plausible, I guess. Cravat, weapon, motive.
It sounds very plausible, and that's where most people, including the police, stopped thinking. They see the obvious connections and, well, they connect them.
But that's not the whole story.
Not even close.
Yeah.
Because true deduction, the kind we're interested in, looks for the cracks, the points where the physical evidence just doesn't quite line up with that neat narrative.
And there were cracks here.
2 major ones. Crucial contradictions that Holmes spotted immediately.
Okay, let's get into these. This is where the logic really starts to bite. First, that strange wound on Straker's thigh. The small cut.
Yes. If Simpson attacked Straker with a heavy stick, leading to a fatal blow, where does that precise little incision come from? It doesn't fit a bludgeoning scenario.
Did Simpson maybe have a knife too? Was there a struggle with knives?
That's what you might think. But if Straker was defending himself, trying to use a knife against Simpson's stick, you'd expect Simpson to have some wounds too, right? Defensive cuts, something.
And he didn't.
Not a scratch on him, according to the reports. So Holmes looked at the wound itself. Small, clean. He considered it highly probable, almost certain, that it was self-inflicted.
Straker stabbed himself. Why?
Not intentionally. During the fall, or maybe the convulsions after the main head injury, remember, trainers often carried small, sharp knives for various tasks. Holmes deduced Straker likely had his own knife on him.
And in the throes of dying, he accidentally cut himself with it.
Precisely. It was a consequence of the fatal blow, not part of the fight that led to the blow.
Wow. Okay. That completely undermines the police idea of a violent struggle where Simpson had to use the stick.
It weakens it considerably. Suddenly, Simpson looks less like a definite murderer and more like, well, maybe just a suspicious guy who was in the wrong place.
All right, that's one contradiction. What was the second?
The horse. Silver Blaze himself. Where did this incredibly valuable, famous racehorse go?
The police thought Simpson kidnapped him, or he just bolted in the storm.
Right, but think about it. If he just bolted, a horse like that, he'd likely head back towards familiar territory, or he'd be found wandering pretty quickly. Dartmoor is big, but not infinite.
And kidnapping. You mentioned gypsies earlier in the context of the police theory.
The police considered gypsies, yes, but it makes no sense. How could a band of gypsies hide a horse like Silver Blaze? They couldn't race him, they couldn't sell him without immediate detection. The risk would be enormous for absolutely zero gain. It just doesn't track.
So, not bolted, not kidnapped by outsiders. What's left?
You have to understand the animal's nature. Holmes described Silver Blaze as a gregarious creature, like most horses, especially stable-raised ones.
He likes company. He'd seek out other horses.
Exactly. His instinct, if he got loose or was let go, wouldn't be to run wild across the moor. It would be to go home back to King's Pyland.
But he wasn't found there.
No. So, what's the next best thing for a gregarious horse? The nearest other stable.
Which was?
Mapleton. Just 2 miles away. Where the second favorite, Desborough, was trained.
Ah. So the fact the horse wasn't found wandering meant someone likely found him and deliberately hid him.
Precisely. Someone professional, someone local, someone who knew horses, and someone with a motive.
Which points away from Simpson, the London tout.
And points directly towards Mapleton stables. And who runs Mapleton? Silas Brown, the trainer of the second favorite, Desborough.
If Silver Blaze disappears, Desborough wins the Wessex Cup. That's a huge motive.
Huge motive. Greed and opportunity. Brown, probably out early himself checking his own horses or the land, finds Silver Blaze wandering. Maybe the horse even came right to his stable following instinct. He sees his chance, hides the favorite.
Okay, but how did Holmes prove it was Brown? Motive isn't enough.
Physical evidence again.
Yeah.
Tiny details. Back at the scene where Straker's body was found, Holmes noticed some boot prints near the body that didn't match Straker's or Simpson's.
What was special about them?
They had peculiarly square toes, very distinctive, and whose boots matched that description perfectly.
Silas Brown's.
Silas Brown's. He was there, he found the horse near the body, led him away, and started his cover-up.
Okay, so Brown hid the horse. But if Simpson didn't kill Straker, and Brown just found the horse, who actually delivered the fatal blow to Straker? This is the big reveal, isn't it?
It is, and it's incredibly ironic. The person responsible for Straker's death was Straker himself, in a way. Or rather, his own plan backfiring.
Right.
Straker, the trusted trainer, was planning to betray his owner, Colonel Ross. He wasn't trying to kidnap the horse, he was trying to secretly injure Silver Blaze.
Injure his own horse, why? To fix the race. Maybe betting against him.
The motive isn't fully stated, but likely heavy betting against his own horse. He intended to make a tiny, almost invisible nick on the horse's tendon with that small sharp knife, the same knife that later caused the cut on his own thigh.
So he could lame the horse slightly, enough to lose the race, but without it looking like deliberate sabotage.
Exactly, a subtle injury. He took the horse out to that secluded hollow on the moor, under the cover of the storm, to perform this delicate, illegal operation.
And the horse.
The horse reacted, probably startled, feeling the prick of the knife. Silver Blaze lashed out with a powerful backward kick, a natural defensive reaction.
And connected with Straker's head.
Precisely. The horse delivered the fatal blow. The victim was killed by the very animal he was trying to betray.
Wow. So Simpson was innocent of murder. Brown was guilty of hiding the horse.
And Straker was the architect of his own demise. When Holmes confronted Brown at Mapleton, he found Silver Blaze hidden away. Brown had even tried to disguise the horse's distinctive white facial marking with dye. Caught red-handed, Brown confessed to the cover-up. Holmes described him perfectly. A bully, coward, and sneak.
So many layers of deception. Simpson's clumsy spying, Straker's secret plot, Brown's opportunistic cover-up, and it all unraveled because of a self-inflicted wound and understanding a horse's instincts. That is quite the deep dive.
It shows how looking past the obvious suspect is key.
Okay, let's shift gears completely, from the rain-swept moors and the world of horse racing.
Baker Street, London. A sweltering hot August day, a totally different atmosphere, and a new case arrives, brought by Inspector Lestrade.
And this one sounds grim right from the start. A package delivered to a Miss Cushing in Croydon.
A very respectable middle-aged spinster lives quietly.
But the package, well, it wasn't exactly a box of chocolates.
No, it was a cardboard box, about half a pound size, originally for honeydew tobacco, but inside were 2 severed human ears.
Truly gruesome, sends shivers down your spine.
Immediately shocking.
Uh-huh.
But again, the investigation didn't just react to the horror, it focused on the technical details. First, the box itself, how it was wrapped.
That's all about it.
The string used to tie was tarred twine, thick, sturdy stuff.
Suggesting.
A nautical connection. Common on ships, used by sailors. That's the first flag.
Okay, sailor's twine. What else?
How Miss Cushing opened it. She didn't untie the knot, which was apparently quite a specific type of sailor's knot. She was so horrified or panicked that she grabbed scissors and just cut the string.
Why does how she opened it matter?
It speaks volumes about her state of mind. If she'd been expecting something sinister or was involved, she might have carefully undone the knot, maybe to preserve it, or just out of habit if she knew the knot.
But cutting it showed genuine shock and innocence. She wasn't expecting that.
Exactly. It immediately suggested she wasn't the intended recipient, or at least not a knowing one. Her reaction was pure, unadulterated horror.
All right, so the packaging points to a sailor and an innocent recipient. Now, the contents, the ears themselves.
Horrific, yes, but also informative. Holmes noted instantly they weren't a matching pair.
Not from the same person.
No. One was small, delicate, clearly a woman's ear. It was even pierced for an earring.
The other.
Larger. Belonging to a man. It was tanned, sunburnt, discolored, suggesting someone who spent time outdoors, maybe at sea. And it was also pierced, which was less common for men then, but not unheard of, especially sailors.
So 2 victims, a man and a woman. Likely killed outdoors or at sea, given the man's ear. A double murder.
Correct. It immediately elevates the crime beyond some stick prank. This is serious.
But Miss Cushing insisted she had no enemies, that the package was meaningless to her. How do you connect her to these victims?
This is where Holmes's incredibly sharp observation, bordering on, well, anatomical expertise, comes in. He's in Miss Cushing's parlor talking to her, and he notices a photograph on the mantelpiece. A group portrait of 3 sisters.
Miss Cushing and her sisters.
Yes, and while observing Miss Cushing, he pays close attention to the shape of her ear. He notices some very specific, minor anatomical details, a slight shortening of the outer rim, the pinna, and a particular broad curve of the upper lobe.
Really specific stuff.
Very, almost like a fingerprint. And then he compares her ear to the female ear from the box.
And they match.
An exact match. Same peculiar shortening, same curve. It meant the female victim wasn't just a relative. She had to be a close blood relative, a sister.
That's incredible. Linking victim to recipient just by the shape of an ear.
It proved the package wasn't random. It was deeply personal, aimed at this family. And if Miss Cushing wasn't the intended target...
It must have been meant for one of her sisters. The other living sister, Sarah.
Precisely. And it turned out Sarah had, until very recently, lived with Miss Cushing at that Croydon address. The sender hadn't known she'd moved.
So, confronted with as the ear match, the likelihood it was meant for Sarah Malaria. Miss Cushing must have opened up.
She did. Revealed the family background. There were the 3 sisters, herself, Susan, Sarah, and the 3rd sister, Mary.
The victim.
Mary, yes. Mary had married a man named Jim Browner. And where did he work?
Let me guess. On a ship.
A ship's steward based in Liverpool. The nautical connection confirmed.
And the intended recipient, Sarah. What was her relationship with Browner?
Therein lies the motive. Sarah had also lived near Mary and Jim in Liverpool for a time, but she and Browner apparently clashed. badly. She strongly disapproved him, particularly his heavy drinking and, well, his general character. She made her feelings known.
Interfering in the marriage, basically.
That's certainly how Browner likely saw it. Suddenly, you have a clear suspect. Jim Browner. Motive: intense jealousy, rage, possibly fueled by alcohol and Sarah's meddling. Opportunity: as a steward, he could commit a crime and be miles away at sea within hours.
The tarred twine, the sailor's knot, the sea-weathered ear, it all fits Browner.
And the logistics confirmed it. Browner's ship, the Mayday, had recently called at Belfast after leaving Liverpool.
Belfast. The postmark on the baggage.
No, the package was posted from Belfast. It was the perfect place for Browner to mail his gruesome parcel back to Sarah's last known address in Croydon before his ship sailed further out. Quick, easy, and creates distance.
The chain of logic seems complete. Sailor's knot, ears indicating double murder, anatomical match to the family, sisterly feud, husband with nautical connections, and a plausible route.
Lestrade put it all together based on Holmes's deductions. They sent a wire to Liverpool. Browner was intercepted right there at the docks, just as the Mayday was about to depart for the Atlantic.
Cornered. Did he confess?
Completely. Broke down entirely. Gave a full, horrifying statement.
Confirming the motive. The jealousy.
Yes, but placing the blame squarely on Sarah. He claimed Sarah had poisoned Mary's mind against him, constantly criticizing him, driving him to drink, and ultimately pushing Mary into having an affair.
An affair with who? A male victim.
With a man named Alec Fairbairn. Browner became consumed by jealousy and suspicion.
So he sought them out.
He did. He described finding Mary and Fairbairn together in a small boat out on the water on a very hazy, foggy day. Visibility was poor.
He caught them.
He pursued them in his own boat, caught up to them, and in a fit of absolute rage, he attacked Fairbairn with a heavy stick or tiller, crushing his skull. And this is the chilling part of his confession. As Fairbairn was dying, Mary apparently cried out, "Alec," and threw her arms around him. Seeing her choose her lover even in death, Browner said it broke something inside him. He struck her down too.
Killed them both in the boat.
Then the final act of brutality. He used his knife, a steward's knife, perhaps to mutilate the bodies. Took the ears.
Why the ears? Just random savagery.
No, it was specific. Targeted vengeance aimed at Sarah. He then tied the bodies to the boat, smashed a hole in the whole stove, a plank, as he put it, and watched the whole thing sink beneath the waves in the fog. He figured the boat would eventually be found, empty, and people would assume they'd just drifted out to sea and drowned accidentally.
Of the ears, sending them to Sarah.
That was the point. Pure, savage revenge for her meddling. He told the police he'd actually threatened Sarah before. He'd warned her, "If Fairbairn shows his face here again, I'll send you one of his ears for a keepsake."
He actually said that.
He did. So mailing that box wasn't just a post-murder act of rage. It was the deliberate, gruesome fulfillment of a specific prior threat. An act of, in his twisted mind, savage joy and finality directed entirely at the sister he blamed.
That connection, the prior threat, makes the whole thing even more chilling. It wasn't just impulsive violence. The final act was premeditated revenge. What a grim story.
Indeed. The horror wasn't just the crime, but the depth of the hatred and betrayal behind it.
All right, our third case takes us into the heart of military society, Aldershot, a seemingly stable domestic situation that explodes.
Yes. We focus on Colonel James Barclay, a decorated soldier, quite dashing apparently, but with a hidden side prone to periods of deep depression, maybe a touch of vindictiveness, and strangely, he disliked being left alone.
He lived with his wife, Nancy, happily married.
Seemingly so. She was beautiful, devout. They lived in a villa called Lachine, but like the previous case, it was a facade built on secrets.
And the rupture happened suddenly.
Very suddenly. One evening, Nancy returns home after a walk with a friend, a Miss Morrison. But Nancy is visibly upset, agitated, in a really bad mood, which was unusual for her.
Okay, something happened on the walk.
Clearly. Later, the colonel joins her in the morning room. It's a room at the front of the house with large French windows looking out towards the road.
And that's where it happens.
That's where the explosion occurs. The servants, the cook, and the coachman in the kitchen nearby suddenly hear a furious argument break out.
Between the colonel and Nancy.
Yes. Loud, angry voices. But what chills them are Nancy's specific words, screamed repeatedly.
What did she say?
"You coward, David, you coward, give me back my life. I will never so much as breathe the same air with you again." Followed by the colonel, crying out just a single cry, then a loud crash, and finally, a terrible, piercing scream from Nancy.
Terrifying. What did the servants do?
They rushed to the morning room door, but it was locked from the inside. They couldn't get in. The coachman ran outside, around to the French windows.
Which were visible from the road, you said.
Yes. He found one side of the window slightly open, ajar. He forced his way in through there.
And seen inside.
Nancy Barclay was lying unconscious on the floor. And Colonel Barclay was dead, lying face down near the fireplace fender. His head had clearly struck the brass fender violently. A terrible head wound.
So she killed him in the argument, then fainted. That seems the obvious conclusion.
It does. Locked room, 2 people inside, 1 dead, 1 unconscious. But there's a problem. A huge problem.
The key.
The key to the locked door. It was missing. It wasn't in the lock on the inside. It wasn't on the Colonel's body. It wasn't on Nancy. It was gone.
If the door was locked from the inside and the key is gone, how?
Exactly. It's the classic locked room puzzle. Neither the dead man nor the unconscious woman could have removed the key and then relocked the door from the outside, or somehow disposed of it after locking it from the inside.
So someone else must have been in that room.
Precisely. A third person. An intruder. Someone who came in perhaps through that slightly open French window, witnessed or was involved in the final moments, locked the door from the inside, took the key, and then slipped out the way they came.
Why take the key?
Maybe to ensure their escape wasn't immediately followed?
Yeah.
To buy time? Or maybe just in panic.
Okay, so an invisible intruder. What evidence did they leave behind? Surely they left some trace.
Holmes arrived and immediately focused on the ground outside that French window. The lawn, the path.
Footprints,
Clear ones, despite the conditions. He found 5 distinct impressions, 1 out on the roadway, 2 on the grass of the lawn, and 2 fainter ones on the wooden floorboards just inside the window.
What did the prints tell him?
The spacing and depth were revealing. Especially on the lawn, the toe prints were much deeper than the heel prints.
Meaning the person was?
Running, or at least moving very quickly, leaning forward, rushing towards the window. A sense of urgency, maybe panic.
Okay, so a man rushed across the lawn, into the room via the window. Something happened, and he left, taking the key. But that wasn't the only strange trace, was it? There was something else, something odd.
Yes, something very odd indeed. Inside the room, near the window curtains, Holmes found markings. Tiny, strange footprints or pad marks.
Not human.
Definitely not human. They showed 5 distinct toe pads and long claw marks. Holmes measured the distance between the front and back pads about 15 inches, suggesting a long-bodied animal. But the stride, the distance between consecutive prints, was only about 3 inches.
Long body, short stride. What kind of creature is that?
He deduced it had to be something like a weasel or a stoat, but significantly larger than any native British species, and it was clearly carnivorous.
How did I know that?
Because the tracks led up the window curtain towards a bird cage hanging there containing a canary. The creature had tried to get at the bird.
A large, non-native, carnivorous, weasel-like animal in an Aldershot villa. That is bizarre.
Bizarre, yes. It was later identified as a mongoose, named Teddy, apparently, and it belonged to the mysterious third man.
So the intruder brought a mongoose with him.
It seems so. Or perhaps it followed him in. Its presence adds another layer of strangeness, but also potentially explains something crucial.
What's that?
The Colonel's death. With this third person, and possibly this strange animal, suddenly appearing in the room during a heated argument. Maybe the Colonel wasn't actually struck by Nancy or even the intruder?
You mean he collapsed from shock?
Exactly. Fright. Apoplexy. A sudden fatal event triggered by extreme emotional distress and the shock of this third presence. He falls, strikes his head fatally on the heavy brass fender.
That would explain the head wound without needing a direct blow from Nancy.
No.
But what could possibly shock a hardened colonel so much that he just drops dead? Who was this intruder?
The key lay with Nancy's companion, Miss Morrison. Under pressure, she finally revealed what had happened on their walk earlier that evening, the thing that had put Nancy in such a state.
What did happen?
They were walking down a street when they encountered a man, a deformed man, a cripple, leaning on a stick. As they passed, he looked up, saw Nancy, and cried out, "My God, it's Nancy!"
And Nancy recognized him.
Instantly, she gasped his name. Henry! A name from her past. A man she believed had been dead for 30 years.
30 years. So the past literally came back to haunt her.
In the form of this crippled man, he was identified as Henry Wood, now going by Harry Wood, making a meager living as a sort of street conjurer or performer.
And the mongoose.
Teddy was part of his act. He carried it around in a box.
So Henry Wood is the intruder. But why? What was the connection to Colonel Barclay? And why would his appearance cause such a fatal shock?
This is where the dark secret, buried for 3 decades, comes out. Henry Wood told his story. 30 years ago, during the Sepoy Mutiny in India, at a place called Bertie, he, a young Sergeant James Barclay, the future colonel, and another soldier named Hudson were serving together.
Comrades in arms.
Yes. And Nancy was Henry Wood's fiancée back then. During the fighting, the 3 men got cut off and were about to be captured by the mutineers. Capture meant almost certain torture and death.
What happened?
James Barclay saw a hidden way out, a secret route to escape back to British lines, but he knew the guides wouldn't take 3 men, only 1 or 2. In a moment of pure cowardice, to save his own skin, Barclay deliberately gave the enemy incorrect information about the escape route his comrades were planning to take. He essentially betrayed Henry Wood and Hudson, ensuring their capture while he slipped away.
He sold them out to save himself.
Exactly. Wood was captured, horrifically tortured, which resulted in his permanent crippling deformities. He eventually escaped after years of captivity, but by then Barclay had returned to England, reported Wood dead, and married Wood's fiancée, Nancy.
He built his entire life, his career, his marriage, on that act of betrayal and deceit.
For 30 years. So imagine the scene. Colonel Barclay is in the morning room. His wife, Nancy, having just encountered Henry Wood and presumably heard his story or pieced it together, is confronting him, screaming, "You coward," at him.
The word that cut deepest, given his past.
Absolutely. And then, at that very moment, Henry Wood himself, the living, breathing, crippled proof of Barclay's 30-year-old crime, appears at the French window. Maybe he rushed in, maybe Teddy the mongoose darted in ahead of him.
The shock.
The sheer, unadulterated shock of seeing the ghost from his past, the victim of his betrayal, standing right there, coupled with his wife's condemnation. It was too much. Holmes concluded it likely triggered an instant medical event. Apoplexy, a stroke, a heart attack.
He collapsed, hit his head on the fender, and died. Not murdered by a blow, but killed by the sudden, overwhelming weight of his own guilt made manifest.
Precisely. Henry Wood, seeing the colonel fall, perhaps thinking he'd somehow caused it or just panicked, grabbed the key from the inside of the door and fled back out the window, leaving Nancy unconscious and the colonel dead.
The ultimate price of silence. Paid 3 decades later in an instant.
The murderer wasn't a person, but a guilty conscience finally confronted.
So 3 cases, 3 dives into darkness. And in each one, the solution hinged on looking past the obvious.
Yeah, whether it was a tiny wound disproving a fight, an earlobe revealing a family connection, or the tracks of a mongoose pointing to a hidden past. It's the small details.
Simple objects, really. A cravat, a piece of string, a missing key. But they told incredible stories. Racing fraud, savage jealousy, decades of betrayal.
And the lesson for you listening is really about that methodology, isn't it? That focus. No action, no event is truly isolated. Everything leaves a trace, however small.
Success, whether you're solving a crime or tackling any complex problem, often comes down to separating that vital clue from all the background noise, seeing the pattern.
It's that unyielding logic, that dedication to the facts on the ground that cuts through deception. It lets you get past the emotion and see the structure underneath.
And yet, even for someone operating at that peak of logical deduction, there's always, perhaps, a bigger game, a deeper shadow.
That's a fascinating point raised in the source material, isn't it? Even Holmes, at the height of his powers, felt his work wasn't truly complete. Not because of cases he couldn't solve, but because of one adversary.
Professor Moriarty.
The Napoleon of crime. Described as having a mind that equaled Holmes's own, but bent entirely towards organizing crime on a vast, almost invisible scale.
A network that pervades London, yet nobody had really heard of him. The ultimate hidden hand.
Holmes apparently felt that bringing Moriarty down, exposing and dismantling his network, would be the absolute crowning achievement of his career, the ultimate intellectual battle.
And that threat, that unseen, highly organized intelligence operating just beneath the surface, was so great it eventually forced Holmes into hiding, into exile, to prepare for a final, potentially fatal confrontation.
So the provocative thought maybe is this. Even when you solve the puzzle in front of you, there might be larger, more complex patterns, bigger threats operating just out of view. The pursuit of knowledge sometimes reveals just how much remains hidden.
That idea of the unseen master strategist, the Moriarty figure, it makes you wonder, doesn't it? What operates today perfectly, just beyond our perception?
Something to think about.
Until next time, keep looking closely. Those small details, they often tell the biggest stories.